Hi everyone. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm just going to go over strategies, right, and how to build your molecules from scratch if that's the approach you want to use. I'll make a different video just going over how to use WebCSD to do it as well. They both have their benefits. They both have their, cons, right, pros, cons. But I'm just going to jump straight into this because you guys don't care about me rambling. All right, so the first thing that I always like to do when I build any kind of molecule from scratch with transition metals, I'll always just build one of the ligands first. So in this case, right, I'm going to be doing the a thiazole. So I'm just going to simply initially build it all just using carbon atoms, right, throwing in all of the connectivity. So there's the thione that has the 5-membered ring off of it, right, and then off of here, right, you have the another 5-membered ring, and then you have that fused 6-membered ring right there. And I'm going to throw in the double bonds in each one of these cases for everything. And so I have all of this right here. So that's all there. So now I'm just going to start switching out atoms, right? So we have nitrogens here, and then we have sulfurs here. So what we can do now is just simply do the cleanup, idealized, right? And then you get it. It throws on all the hydrogens. You have everything right here. So it looks, pretty decent and everything. So this is a good starting point. So one thing that I like to do now in these scenarios is then just simply throw in a dummy atom. So I'm going to throw in tellurium because that should be a different color. Yeah, it's like an orange color. And I'm going to put that where I'm going to assume the iron is going to necessarily bind, right? So that's going to be roughly right there in those cases. And so that lets me kind of figure out everything from that perspective for all the stuff that I'm going to be doing next. So now we have one of the ligands, right? So each one of you has 2 of these ligands that have to be bound. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the entire atom. So you can do that by having the pointer button, and you double click on the atom. It selects everything, and then we can just simply Control C, Control V, right? Copy it. So now I have a new copy right here, laying on top of it, of all of the atoms that I have. And so I can move everything around, right? So if I press the T button, that gives me the translate button, so I can move that down to kind of get it a little bit out of the way. Right. Another thing that I can do is I can use the R button, right? So if that switches it to rotate. So now I can rotate this molecule in space. And so what I'm going to try to do is align everything up in terms of how I wanted the ligand to be, right, for the coordination environment in those cases, right? So for this specific conformer, the idea is for the nitrogen on one of the thiols to be to be trans to the thione of the other ligand, right? So I'm just going to, move things around. So I'm just going to be jumping through, T and R in these cases. So I rotated here. It looks kind of okay-ish. Hit T, translate it. Now trying to position it down into there. And so trying to get that overlap of where the iron is in these cases. And so that might also require you to kind of rotate the entire, view. So if we click on that and we go right here, right, we can see that now, right, there's some stuff that has to get moved around. So I'm just going to go back to, adjusting, right? So clicking back on the pointer button, hitting T to translate, and I'm just going to adjust and move things over, right? And hopefully things are now kind of getting lined up. So let's rotate around, kind of get a view, right? So it looks okay-ish, right? So we have, the dummy atoms are kind of, overlapping in this case pretty well. Right, I have my nitrogen and my sulfur trans to each other, right? I have then the other sulfur and the other nitrogen cis to each other in that case. So it looks like the 2 ligands are lined up the way that I want them to be. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to build in the SNO. So for this specific conformer and molecule that I'm looking at, I'm going to be binding it via the sulfur in this case, and it's going to be trans to the nitrogen from the thiazole group. So I'm going to take this, right, take my sulfur, build that in. So I'm going to have the sulfur right here, connect that to the central atoms, right? It doesn't matter which one it is. Take that and look right there. Oh, turns out that I didn't actually connect it right there. But in terms of the positioning, it's not bad. So what I can do is I can just simply go here, double click out into the middle of nowhere so everything gets, deselected. Click on that bond, delete it because I don't want it. But now I can, go and I can set up that bond right there, hopefully. I'll just drag from there. Yeah, right. So that's all set up. So, right, so we have that right there. And so the nice thing about using, the dummy atoms is that you can kind of get an idea of where in space things are. And so another thing that might be useful is to kind of move probably that sulfur from the NO a little bit. So again, click on this button right here, hit translate, and then got to select it first and then hit translate, right? So I can just move this over, kind of make it a bit more trans in that case to the to that nitrogen, right? So I have this right here. So next thing I want to do, right, is build in the nitrogen and the oxygen, right? So I'm going to build in the nitrogen just a little bit. Now, one thing, right, from this perspective, it doesn't look like it's that far, but if you go right here, right, it's super far away. And that's, you know, one of the downsides of building from scratch is that you're going to be doing a lot of clicking on things and adjusting them to get them to be pretty decent, because even though, you know, WebMO is kind of smart, if things are very, very far away, it's just going to assume that they actually aren't really that close. So I brought that in. Next thing I want to do, right, is bring in the oxygen. So I'm going to throw the oxygen right here, give myself a double bond, and then just rotate around, give me a view, see, like, does that look like a reasonable distance? Yeah, that's not too bad. Right, so that's a pretty decent distance for that right there. Right, so the SNO is built. Last thing we need to do is build the acetonitrile. So go back to here, click on nitrogen, right, build that in. So, you know, we can see that that's just like crazy far away. So, you know, again, adjust, you know, click on the arrow, hit that right there, hit the T for translate, and then just start moving it down on your own, trying to get it, you know, a reasonable position and distance away. So, you know, rotating things, the view, clicking on stuff, adjusting, and then pushing it around is always useful, right? So we have that right there. So next thing, right, we have then the triple bonded carbon. So I'm just gonna, you know, 1, 2, 3, triple bond it. And again, if you're looking at it, it's crazy far away. So take it and hit that T. Oh, wait a second, I gotta still that selected. I have to select the carbon, right? Now hit the T, right? So we can translate the selection and then just simply move it around, right? So it's a lot of adjusting and moving stuff around that happens in these cases, right? Look at it, not bad, right? It's fairly straight. It's not terribly far away. So we have that right there. So next thing to do is throw on another carbon, right? And again, right, it's just crazily far away. So just, you know, keep on adjusting and moving things around. Right, so we have that. Rotate. Let's try to get this a little bit more straight in this case. Right, so we have this right here. Looking at it, okay, not terrible, right? That'll probably get straightened out by the geometry optimization. So we have that right there. And so now the last thing we have to do is add on the 3 hydrogens, right, for the methyl group off of the, let me change the view here, of the acetonitrile. So grab the hydrogens. So 1, all right, there we go. 1, 2, 3. Right now, of course, again, right, they're super far away and super grotesquely positioned. So you just have to take them, right? And so one easy thing, right, if you select all 3 of them and then you do the translate, right, they all just simply move closer. So that'll make your life a little bit easier, you know, as we go here, right? So we have these guys right there. Hit escape, right, to adjust that. And so now I just simply want only one of these initially. Hit translate to kind of move them down here. Right, let's see where we're at. So we have this. So I'm going to move then this hydrogen right here. Oh, hit that T, kind of bring it around right here. Right, so we have that. Probably, you know, I'm just going to adjust those hydrogens a little bit more, I think, just to be on the safe side. So that way they don't think that they want to be on you know, not tetrahedral. Okay, now now that the molecule's built, right, the one thing that we want to do probably then beforehand is make sure that we're going in and choosing all of the different atoms, right, that we're going to do the, you know, the new GTO2, right, where we're going to change the basis sets for the individual atoms. So one easy trick that we can do in that case is we can actually simply change the different atom types here to atoms that aren't the ones that we're actually using. So that way, when we go in and we look at the, the input file to start adjusting it and changing it, is what we can do is we can, just simply find those atoms that aren't part of what we actually want, but then specifically change those back to, being nitrogen or sulfur in those cases. And then adding the keyword at the end, right? But then, keeping track of it very easily, right? Because it becomes, considering how many sulfurs there are, how many nitrogens there are, and we're not really looking to specifically change all of them. We're only looking at specific ones. This is a pretty good approach that I like to use. So what I'm going to do is, for all of the sulfurs that I care about, is I'm going to change those sulfurs to selenium, right? So 1, 2, 3. So what I'm going to do then next for the nitrogens, right, I'm going to change those to phosphorus. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then for the oxygen, that can stay the same, right? Because there's nothing else here on the oxygen within the ligand or anything like that. So we don't have to worry about that. So now what we can do is we can go in and we can set up, all the details for our computation. So, iron, SNO, SN. In this case, what I would label mine, geometry corrected, right? B3 lip. Def to SVP, right, for the overall basis set. The auxiliary is TZVPC. This is going to have a charge of 1, and it's going to be a quintet, unrestricted, advanced, right, Rij cos X. Cores nodes, set that to 32. Go to preview here. Click on generate. So what we're going to do now to make our lives easier for selecting it, right, we can see now that, everything in here that is set to selenium, right, it should actually be a sulfur, right? So this selenium right here is what I want to change. And so what I can do now is add in the command. So let me just, and because I don't necessarily remember off the top of my head how the commands always go, let me find my input that I had used in the past, right? So we have this guy right here, right? I'm just going to throw that here at the end. Let me just drop the ruthenium. So an easy thing to do, especially when you run into the problems, right, with the different quotes, is if you just have one that's already set up, you can just simply copy and paste that stuff in there. So I have this right here, so copy this. So right, so the selenium one is going to change to that, so that becomes a sulfur again. I can scroll down, right? I find a phosphorus here, so I know the phosphoruses are supposed to be changed to nitrogen, and that's going to then get this guy, right? We have a selenium here, so that should be changed back to sulfur. And so that gets that guy. We have another phosphorus here, nitrogen, that goes there. And then this right here is probably the SNO, right? So that gets sulfur, so selenium gets turned back into a sulfur, this phosphorus gets turned back into a nitrogen, and then I just simply throw in the commands at the end, and all of that's set up, right? So all of this is built, and so now I can just simply copy this into my a notepad thing and build everything out and save it and run it, right? And so that's a pretty quick and easy way of finding it, right? And so let me just double check. Oh, there's one that I missed right here, right? So there's a phosphorus, right? So this is a nitrogen. In this case, so I have this added right here, right? So in total, what I should have for this structure, just looking at it again, there should be a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 nitrogens that have the new GTO, right? So I have one right here, one right there, so that's 2, 3, 4, right? I have my oxygen, and then in terms of the sulfur, there should just be 3 sulfurs. So I have 1, 2, 3, right? So all of the sulfurs are done, the iron's done, and everything like that. So everything should be set, everything should be good to go, and hopefully, right, this will give Orca a pretty good a starting geometry to work on, right? Get the computation started, and hopefully no crazy funny business happens with it, but we never know, right? That's just one of the things with doing research and running these computations. So if this seemed like a lot of work, I highly recommend maybe trying out the WebCSD version, which I'm going to do in a second to try and see what's going on and try to make a version through that. So yeah.